my goodness. Hello, everyone. Just making sure that we're actually live on both Facebook and Instagram. So, oh my gosh, I have not gone so long. It's ridiculous how long it has been. So, hello to anyone who is joining. Just so you know, I'm just kind of talking to both Facebook and Instagram. If you see me sort of going like that is why. So I actually wanted to come on and talk about something that has just really been on my heart lately. It's been a topic, a huge topic in the conversations with my clients and I feel like what better time of year to talk about this than the holiday season. And so the topic for today is the topic of freedom versus bondage. You know, in other words, feeling at peace inside of ourselves, feeling like freedom inside of ourselves versus feeling a lack thereof. You know, sometimes you'll hear this referred to as like bondage or the bondage of self. I'm going to kind of say that again as I'm seeing that people are coming on over here. That's the topic that we're talking about today. I figure it's a really great time of year to talk about this because there's so many opportunities to celebrate and enjoy and, you know, indulge, if you will, in our lives. And there's 100% nothing wrong with any of those things. But a topic that I'm really fascinated with is like really looking at what creates freedom for us in our lives and what creates bondage, right? So it's like all day, every day, we all have the ability to make choices, right? We have decisions and choices that we get to make all day, every day with great freedom, right? We could call that freedom, right? We're free to choose, we're free to do for the most part. And I get that depending on where we live and the culture we're in, you know, all of that can vary, but we get to choose, right? We get to decide where we want to go, what we want to do, what we want to think, what we want to eat, what we want to drink, who we want to do all of those things with. And with great freedom comes great responsibility. So what I'm finding, you know, as I just kind of dive into this a little deeper within myself and dive into this a little deeper with my clients, you know, part of this has really been inspired by my own journey with bondage, you know, making decisions and making choices that created a lack of freedom inside my own heart, right? Kind of stuck me in a self-made prison, if you will, sort of made me a slave to my own decisions, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of like wanting to unpack that a little bit today and really look at the fact that we have the freedom, right? Freedom to choose a lot of things in a day. And every time we get the opportunity to make a choice, we have a great responsibility in that moment to decide kind of which direction we want to go. Do we want to make a choice that makes us more free ultimately, right? Or do we want to make a choice that kind of sends us into, you know, eventually a state of feeling less free, right? So like one like silly example of this, and again, I'm not saying it's wrong to do this, but one example might be, you know, I decide that I'm gonna eat an entire pizza, right? And the next day I wake up and I'm going to feel that, right? I'm probably not gonna feel as free inside myself as I maybe would have felt if I hadn't eaten the pizza. Now, that's not always the case. Maybe you feel more free if you eat the pizza. That's not the point. It's just more like, can we look at things honestly and use our discernment to make a decision that either makes us more free or makes us less free? You know, so let's talk about freedom for just a minute, you know, and I think this all boils down to, what does freedom mean for you? You know, what does that feel like for you? When you feel free, what is that for you? I know for me, I know that I can really kind of decide everything about my day, everything about my life. What I've learned that if I make a decision that sort of robs me of my vitality, if you will, or robs me of my energy, if you will, it's not that big of a deal if I just do it once, right? That's sort of very easy to course correct. But if I keep making that same decision over and over again, what happens is like Say, for example, it's sugar, right? Or say, for example, it's alcohol. Or say, for example, it's you decide not to go to the gym, or you decide not to go to yoga, you decide not to move your body. Or say, for example, you indulge a negative thought, right? You let yourself collapse into that negative thought. These are all examples. It's like if you do it and you catch yourself and you circle yourself back, that's not a huge deal. The problem is when we do something and we keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until that thing sort of overpowers us, right? It kind of gets a hold of you. It kind of moves into your head and moves into your heart and moves into your body and really starts to drain your power, drain your light, drain your radiance, drain your vitality. And then all of a sudden you can kind of wake up one day like, how did I get to this place, right? I know there's more creativity in me. I know there's, I'm capable of more. I know more is possible for me in my life. And why does it feel like it's hard to get from where I am to there, right? And it's like, it all comes down to the power of our choices. So what I'm seeing is like in each and every moment, we have this, I'll call it an opportunity, I'll call it an invitation, to make a decision about something. And if we're not sort of mindful or hyper vigilant in that moment, we can kind of give our power away to something that could ultimately rob our power down the road. Does that make sense? Let me know if you guys have any questions as I'm saying this. I know it's kind of a big topic to unpack, but there's also this way that if we're hyper vigilant in each and every moment, and we know as we begin our day that our goal is to feel more free as the days go on, right? More free by the end of the day than I even felt at the beginning of the day, right? More free tomorrow than I did today, more free the day after that than I did the day before. If that's sort of like the goal that we're working towards, like you can pretend it's like you put it into your GPS when you get into the car, right? And like now that's the direction that you're heading in, then that's going to help you navigate your choice by choice by choice by choice, right? We're not trying to be perfect. Like that's just impossible, right? We're all flawed. We all make bad choices sometimes. We all make mistakes. Like that's not the point. The point is, are we able to go, this decision is taking me a little bit off track. This decision is taking me out of integrity. My self-esteem or my self-confidence or my energy or my vitality, they're decreasing, right? And they're decreasing because I'm kind of making this choice that's just slowly chipping away, at that. Are we able to take a look at things honestly? Are we able to slow down enough in our lives? Do we have the practices and the rituals and those kind of sacred spaces and moments, set aside for us to really reflect in this way? And I mean, I'll share just personally, like there's been seasons in my life and chapters of my life where I didn't know this, and I made terrible decisions, and I made terrible decisions over and over and over and over and over, partly because it was ignorance. I didn't know better, and I sort of needed to hit, a rock bottom of sorts to start to kind of wake up and start to kind of understand some of these things. And I'll even just share like Thanksgiving, right? So that's kind of kicks off the holiday season. Thanksgiving was a great time with family. And I don't know, maybe a week ago I thought, okay, like I've been kind of overindulging quite a bit since Thanksgiving. Again, this isn't about going into shame or judging ourselves about it. It's about awareness, right? And discernment. And so it's like, okay, I'm recognizing that some of these overindulgences, and they were feeling actually quite fun and playful and good, at first. But now I'm sort of crossing a line where it's starting to chip away at my vitality. It's starting to chip away at my self-esteem. I feel like I'm stepping out of spiritual integrity. I feel like I'm, stepping out of alignment with who I really am. I'm not waking up each day feeling that I can serve people or be the best that I can be and contribute in the biggest and highest of ways. So I might need to maybe shift a little bit here, And something I read recently that I loved was the difference between guilt and shame, and I feel like so many of us, I just want to say hello to everybody who's coming on. It's good to see you guys. It's been so long since I've gone live, and I can tell you I was so nervous to get on here today, but thanks for being here. So The difference between guilt and shame, right? So, and this is the coolest thing, and because I've always kind of looked at guilt as being like a bad thing, right? None of us want to feel guilty, right? But there's this really subtle difference in guilt and shame that can really change the trajectory of what you do with guilt when it shows up. So, for example, like, I'm going to just use an example that everyone can relate to because it's easy. So say you overindulge on like cookies, right? Your wife or your husband or a loved one makes you a big batch of homemade cookies and you eat the whole entire thing, and you overindulge, right? And then you feel guilty. I mean, some people might not feel guilty, some people might. I'm hoping this is an example that most people can relate to, right? So you feel guilty at some stage. Maybe it's right afterwards, maybe it's you wake up in the morning and you have a bit of a stomach ache and you feel guilty. So the guilt is not a bad thing. It's an invitation, right? It says, hey, you know what? There's a better way for you. Like, you can actually be like thriving even more. And I'm just kind of letting you know that this is a really good time to reevaluate, maybe reorganize your thoughts, your energy, your priorities, your choices, maybe reprioritize a few things, maybe, start to look at like, am I feeding my spirit enough or am I feeding my cravings, right? Like, which one are we feeding? And then shame is usually where guilt takes us. Yeah. So it's like you wake up, you feel guilty, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? Or, oh, I can't believe I did that again. Or, oh, I have no willpower. Or, oh, and we start to kind of make it about our character. And that's not what we want to do. We don't want to let guilt take us into shame, right? So this conversation, what it's about is like, if we can kind of recognize that we have the power to be disciplined, like we have the freedom to make these choices that really empower us in our lives. And I think if we can just kind of understand that, like, we don't feel trapped by discipline. We start to see discipline as this like opportunity, this invitation, right? Guilt kind of shows up and it's like, oh, it's this opportunity, it's this invitation to look at things a little differently and really kind of reevaluate what's important to us and kind of say, okay, am I on the trajectory of feeling more free, or am I on the trajectory of feeling less free? Does that make sense? And I don't know, maybe I just value freedom so much and I hate the feeling of feeling like a prisoner inside my own body, right? Or a prisoner inside my own mind, or a prisoner inside my own heart. Like, for me, there is some suffering that comes along with just the human experience, and being here in these bodies. And then there are certain types of suffering that are just unnecessary. They're unnecessary, and they happen because, we put ourselves there, and we don't necessarily take the radical responsibility that is required to utilize the freedom that we have in the most productive, nourishing, healthy way. Right? We can actually misuse our freedom or misunderstand our freedom, or, it's like choices take energy, right? Decisions take energy, and all day, every day, we're making choices and making choices and making choices and making choices. And by the end of the day, we're weary, you guys, like, we're weary, and, it takes stamina to do that. It takes endurance to do that. So as each choice kind of wears the endurance down or wears the stamina down or kind of takes a little bit more energy, then we're a little more vulnerable, a little more susceptible to just say, fuck it, or whatever, or, make a choice that we didn't start out at the beginning of the day wanting to make. And in fact, we said, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do this over here instead. And by the end of the day, guess what happens? You're back there making that choice again. And it's like every time we do that and we step out of personal integrity, we step out of integrity, meaning we sort of like make a promise, or we have a vision, or we have a goal, right? Like New Year's, that we're going to do something differently. And when we do it differently, it builds us up, it builds our self-esteem. And when we don't, it kind of breaks that down. So the question is, how do we maintain strength? Like, how do we stay in alignment? How do we stay in our integrity? And how do we do this in a way that doesn't feel limiting, or doesn't feel like we're being deprived, or, or all the things we think about when we think about making positive changes or being more disciplined, right? Because that's not the goal. We don't want to feel deprived. We want to feel like more unlimited. We want to feel more free. We want to feel like there's more available to us. So just think about that. You know, when you keep a promise to yourself and then you feel like really filled with self-esteem, like think about how you show up in your relationships. You know, think about how much more deeply you're able to love and laugh because you're not sort of imprisoned by the suffering that was self-created, right? So it's like, however, how do we do that? You know, how do we do that? How do we keep ourselves strong enough that we can come head, you know, face to face, toe to toe with these decisions when maybe it's at the end of the day or at the end of a hard work week or something crappy just happened with a loved one and we're feeling, you know, a bit down. It's like, how do we continue to make these decisions that build us up and don't break us down, you know? And so number one is finding ways to feed your spirit. You guys, I mean, I'm speaking to myself too. Like, I have to be in this conversation with myself all the time. It's like, am I feeding my cravings or am I feeding my spirit? I'm not telling you or myself that there's anything wrong with feeding my cravings or feeding your cravings. But when I start to feed my cravings more than I'm feeding my spirit, it's a vicious cycle, and my cravings can literally become a monster, like a wild beast that just takes over me, right? It just overcomes me. And then the me that wants to shine, or the me that wants to, you know, show up with the highest level of humility or self-esteem or confidence and serve another person in the best and highest way, that part of me can't come forward, right? Because this other thing is kind of in the driver's seat. Does that make sense? So yeah, the first thing is like, let's find ways to feed our spirit. And one way that I do that, and this doesn't have to be the same for you, but I highly recommend it, is a morning routine. Like, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to feel like another thing to do. This should be something that actually nourishes you, something that you look forward to, something that just like gets your brain and your heart in the right space for the day, you know? For me, that was journaling for a long time. I still love to journal, but I've been on this like reading kick. So reading things that really feed my spirit have been amazing and so helpful. I love to learn. I love to feel like my mind is expanding. And so for me, that really works. It could be meditation. It could be going for just 5 minutes and putting your feet out on the grass and kind of connecting with nature. It doesn't have to look any specific way. But yeah, how do we feed our spirit? Because when our spirit is fed, we tend to make different decisions. You know, we tend to approach life in a different way, and we kind of come from a different value system than when we're feeding our cravings. And then it's like, you know, we only ever feel satisfied when the craving's satisfied, right? And then another craving comes, and et cetera, et cetera. I'll just share, I decided to do a cleanse this week in December, which seems crazy, right? It's like December and it's holidays, and there was all of these excuses that my body that wants to do all the things, right? It's like, oh, but it's December, and oh this and oh that. And what I turned around and said to my body was like, yeah, I get all that, and in some ways, like, I could let you be right, you know, yeah, celebration and more food and more this and more that. And I really want to enjoy my time with my family, and my stepdaughter's coming next week. And I thought, well, I know that if I feel really free inside, then those things that I eat and those things that I drink and those people that I you know, spending quality time with, those moments are going to feel that much sweeter. You know, those moments are going to feel that much richer, right? If I take some time to just kind of, like I heard this the other day, like, you know, your body's kind of like a child, right? You don't want to teach your body that it just gets to have whatever it wants, whenever it wants, right? Your body needs to know that you're in charge, you know, that you're in charge. And, you know, just like you would tell your baby, you would tell your child, like, sugar isn't good for you to eat all the time, right? And they're not going to like it. They're not going to want to hear that, but you know what's best for them. You know what's going to help them sleep better. You know what's going to make them a happier child, right? You know what's going to make, you know, stabilize their blood sugar, and what's going to make them feel more stable and more safe and more secure and more, you know, effective and confident overall, you know, and we just want to treat ourselves like that as well. So I know this subject always, it feels like it makes so much sense to me, and it's been coming up in my sessions with clients. And so, I've been able to have this conversation with quite a few people in the last, maybe month or two. I'm curious, is this a theme that you see for yourself? Like, what comes up for you around this? This whole idea of freedom versus bondage, right? Making decisions that are going to lead you toward a more free state within versus a less free state within. The last thing I guess I'll just say here, let me just see if anybody is leaving any comments. I don't want to ignore. You guys, I haven't used this in so long. I don't even know if I know how to use it right now. But anyway, I'll check later and I'll respond later. So just one last thing is we've all heard that saying, what you focus on expands, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. What you look at gets bigger. What you think about, becomes your reality. So, and this has been my experience, and it's sort of we can experiment with that. If that doesn't feel true, it's well, just try it. Think about something for a while and think about it and think about it and think about it, or focus on it, and watch how that influences and watch how that impacts the trajectory of your day. Watch how that influences and impacts the energy of your relationship and the energy of your home. These things, you can put them into practice and you can figure it out for yourself, whether they work or they don't work. It's been my experience that it's 100% true that when our focus is our superpower, and what we look at gets bigger, right? What we focus on gets bigger. So this goes for the things that, the choices that we're making and the things that we're doing, and all of those things affect our thoughts and our ability to focus. So just kind of looking at the ripple effect of the choices that we're making. So back to the morning routine. I feel like this is such a great thing. If you feel like you want, you're hungry to feel more empowered around the way you set yourself up for the day, if that's something you feel like you're ready for, and I totally get that it's something that we really have to feel ready for. It's something that we have to feel hungry for. Many of you may very likely already do this in your life, a super awesome morning routine. If you do, I want to know what it is. I love hearing what people do in the mornings. But if you're wanting help with that, I'm going to be leaving a link. Actually, I meant to do that already, but the link will be in my bio on Instagram. You can actually just book a call with me and I can help you curate that for yourself. And then on Facebook, I'll leave it in the comments underneath this video. I'll leave the link so you can actually book to curate and cultivate. It's completely complimentary. There's no charge. This is just a way that I can help contribute to the quality, of your vitality and your radiance and your well-being. And I would love to hear your questions because this topic fascinates me. So what comes up for you around discipline? What comes up for you around freedom? What do you do with the freedom that you have to make the choices, to make whatever choice you want to make? And whatever choice you want to make in each and every moment. One thing I think about, a mentor long ago said to me, when you are putting the groceries into your car, you make sure that you put that grocery cart back where it belongs. And that was a really interesting time in my life because I needed a lot more discipline in my mind, because I just kind of thought it was okay to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, and it got me into trouble. And it was well, why do I need to put that back? Nobody else does it. Why can't I just leave it on a curb, or whatever people do? But she said these are the types of things that when we do them, they add to our character, they build our self-esteem. And now it's if I even try to not take the grocery cart back, I feel it, But on the flip side, you put the grocery cart back and it's that little tiny thing, builds your self-esteem and helps you. It actually sets you a little bit more free, So what are the kinds of things that set you free? And what are the kinds of things that actually kind of plop you into a cell of your own self-made prison? And this isn't to judge yourself or to go into some, condemnation or anything. It's just to have awareness, you guys, so that we can actually cultivate the kind of joy that transcends circumstances, right? Because joy is a choice too. Joy is a choice too. And that's one thing I love about fasting is you sort of take the food away, right? You tell your body, I'm sorry that you're having these cravings, but you don't get to have what you want anytime that you want. And you teach your body that joy is available even when it's not getting what it wants, you know? So it's like the discipline creates the freedom. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I don't indulge. I totally indulge. I love to indulge. You know, it's the greatest thing until it's not, you know, and that's all I'm saying is like, let us be mindful that when that moment comes, you guys, that it's like, okay, I have now stepped away from freedom and now I'm heading towards bondage. No thanks. Don't make a big deal about it. Circle back. Time to feed the spirit. Been feeding my cravings a little too much. You know, it's messing with my mind. It's messing with my heart. It's messing with my body. Probably messing with my relationships and messing with my creativity and all kinds of other things. So it's just in that moment, ask yourself, what do I need to feed my spirit? What do I need to bring myself back to the trajectory of more freedom, not less, right? And when we're feeling free, we can really show up for other people. And I think that like further along we get with all of this, you guys, like, right, the older we get and the more we learn, the more humbled we are by life. It's like we learn, you know, that the almost like one of the greatest things ever is to be able to really serve another human. And when our hearts are in bondage, that is just so hard to do. You know, it's like there's a saying that I used to hear often, which is, you know, we can't give away what we haven't got. You know, we can't give away what we haven't got. So I'm going to leave it there, you guys. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've been here. Thank you for anyone and all of you who came to have a little pop in and a little visit. I would love to hear from you. Like, what were your thoughts? What came up for you? If you want to, you know, support with that morning routine, like I said, Instagram, I'm going to leave that link in my bio. In Facebook, I'm going to leave that link. Once the video is done processing, I'll leave that link in the comments. And that's all for now, you guys. Happy holidays. I hope you have the best, most joyful, delicious, delightful time with your families and your loved ones. And if you're struggling or suffering, I am praying for you and I'm sending you so much love. I know that this time of year can also be so, so hard. It's my second year without my mom. And, you know, it's just a mixed bag of emotions right now. And so, again, another reason why we can, you know, the more hypervigilant we are around our emotional freedom, the better off, you know, the stronger we are and the better at navigating through those kind of tricky emotional places we can be, you know. All right, you guys, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. Talk to you soon if I actually know how to turn this off. Bye, guys. Just figured out how to turn off Instagram.